So UFC 267 goes down this weekend and the card is stacked. It's an absolute monster of a card. And I don't know about you guys, but for me personally, it felt like this card is on the horizon. It's a few weeks away. It's a few weeks away. It's a few weeks away. And now it's not. Now it's only a couple of days away. It's really crept up on me, crept in Conan. And I was thinking about making individual videos about the fights that I'm most interested in. But then I looked at the card and I thought to myself, I don't really want to be sat here making 10 separate videos for 10 separate fights. So what I'm going to do instead is talk about the card as a whole, holistically, and just give a few opinions about the fights that I'm going to end up talking about. Maybe even give you guys a pick for the fights that I end up talking about. And then you guys can comment back to what I've said, and then I can respond back to that. And that's generally how online discourse works. But before we get into it, my name's Rahul J. Chan. This is the Battle Camp. Thank you very much for joining me. If you're new to the channel, please do consider subscribing. I'm out of breath, not because I've put on weight recently. It's because I feel a little bit under the weather. I'm a little bit poorly. Got a bit of a cold. I played football on Monday, and I puked up in my mouth twice, but I swallowed because I'm a good boy. All right. Anyway, let's talk about the fights. Jan Błachowicz against Glover Teixeira. I was lying in bed, thinking about Jan Błachowicz and Glover Teixeira and this fight itself. And you know what? These guys are the complete opposite of Jon Jones, and that's the first thing that sprung to mind. Because when you think of the light heavyweight division, what do you think of? What do I think of? It's Jon Jones, right? He's a crown prince, the king, the emperor of the light heavyweight division, and he's no longer there anymore. And these guys are fighting for the title, but even so, Jan Błachowicz has won the title, defended it once or twice, is it now? And I'm still sat here talking about Jon Jones. That's how much of an influence he's had in that division. But while I was sat there thinking about Jan Błachowicz and Glover Teixeira, this is the kind of conclusion I came to. The reason why I say they're the complete opposite of Jon Jones is Jon Jones came in as a young star, the new kid on the block, a prodigy almost, and just ran through competition until he won the belt. And he was, at the time, I think he was the youngest ever champion in UFC history. I don't know if that's a fact or if I've just made that up, but he's definitely in the top 3 youngest ever champions in UFC history. And Jan Błachowicz and Glover Teixeira, Jan Błachowicz is in his late 30s, Glover's in his early 40s, and these guys have had their difficulties. They've taken their L's, man. And 3 or 4 years ago, when you look at that division, after Glover Teixeira lost to Jon Jones, let me just double check when that was. That was back 2014, bloody hell. It doesn't feel like it's that long ago. The time is just going so quick. But he went through this phase of losing to, you know, Rumble Johnson and Gustafsson. Now that I'm looking at his Wikipedia page, he lost to Corey Anderson. And that was in 2018, 3 years ago. Like, at that point, where Jan Błachowicz was in his career and Glover Teixeira was in his career, you look at the division and you ask the question, who's going to be the champion of the light heavyweight division come the end of 2021 in 4 years' time? Who's picking either of those two? No one. And you have to hold your hands up and say, well bloody done to both of them to get to this point. And you have to say, like, and another reason why they're the opposite of Jon Jones is because they're such, like, and I know it's embedded, it's a documentary where they pick and choose what they put in and what they keep out and stuff. But just by the way I've seen them conduct themselves in interviews and stuff like that, they just seem like just really nice, down-to-earth family men, Glover and Jan Błachowicz do. And what they represent is very different to what Jon Jones represents as a fighter and unfortunately as a man. With that being said, I made a promise on YouTube to myself that I would never pick against Jan Błachowicz ever again, because since I've been in the YouTube game, I think I've literally spoken about Jan Błachowicz fights 4 times, 5 times, and every single time I picked against him. So that stops. I promised after the easy fight that I wouldn't pick against him. And actually, to be honest with you guys, irrespective of this YouTube promise that I made to myself, I'd still pick Jan Błachowicz. So I just feel like these days people say he's in his bag. He's in his bag. Jan Błachowicz is definitely in his bag. He's in his zone at the moment, man. And I feel like he's just so confident in his own abilities. and I feel like he just has an edge to him at the moment, and he's been dominant, man. He's been dominant against Dominic Reyes. He was dominant against Izzy. Gonna go back onto his page and see who he fought before then, because I can't remember off the top of my head. But I want to say he was dominant in that Corey Anderson, because he was actually the underdog in that fight, and he knocked Corey Anderson out. So Jan Błachowicz has been on a roll. Luke Rockhold, I picked against him. Ronaldo Jacare, I picked against him. Corey Anderson, I picked against him. So yeah, like, he's been dominating, man, and I feel like he doesn't question himself as a champion. He believes he is the best in the world, and he fights like that. Do you know what I mean? Like, he just oozes confidence to me anyway. Just his demeanor, the way he carries himself. And I'm not saying Glover isn't confident, and I'm not saying Glover doesn't bring his own kind of dangers to the octagon with him when he faces up against Jan. But I just feel like this is maybe a year or two late for Glover to be fighting Jan in the form that he's currently in, and I am going to be picking Jan Błachowicz to win that fight. The co-main event is the one that I'm really looking forward to, because obviously this is an odd one, right? So the original fight was Aljamain Sterling against Peter Yan in a rematch for the bantamweight title. Aljamain Sterling, you can't say he dropped out, because it didn't ever feel like, according to what's happened since, how it's all transpired, he was never in the fight. Like, he was never going to be ready for the fight anyway, right? But Corey Sandhagan has jumped up, and he's replaced Aljo. And a lot of people are more interested in this fight than they were in the original title fight, even though Aljamain Sterling is the champion, given how that first fight between Aljamain and Peter Yan played out. Corey Sandhagan is a technician on the feet. Peter Yan is a very vicious, and he's a very aggressive striker who looks for the finish. This should be an explosive fight. The only thing that I will say is I don't feel like I'm as high on Corey Sandhagan as the rest of the MMA world is. And I don't know whether it's a hipster thing where it's cool just to say that Corey Sandhagan is definitely going to be champion at some point. And it's not even a hot take saying that Corey Sandhagan's going to eventually win the belt, because he is a very good fighter. I'm happy to admit that I may be wrong when I say this, and it might sound odd saying this because of the emphatic knockouts he's had recently against Frankie Edgar, and who was the one before that? Was it Marlon Moraes or someone like that? Yeah, Marlon Moraes and then Frankie Edgar. Just the way he fought against TJ Dillashaw, and obviously, I don't know, man. Like, he was able to knock Frankie Edgar and Marlon Moraes out because it felt like he just was a cut above technically on the feet, right? And he came up against someone in the form of TJ Dillashaw, who had been out for a number of years, right? And I know a lot of people picked Corey Sandhagan to win, and maybe I'm being too harsh on him, because obviously TJ Dillashaw is known as one of the greatest bantamweight in UFC history. So I'm not really judging him fairly, I don't think. But I suppose the point I'm trying to make is, and again, I'm open to discuss this, and I'm open to be proved wrong on this, I don't know whether he's really got a big kind of killer instinct in the octagon. Sometimes I feel like he's got more to give, and he's just holding back because he's very technical and reliant on the technical aspect of a fight, rather than taking it to the opponent and putting it on the opponent and going for the kill. I kind of got that impression a couple of times during the fight against TJ Dillashaw, and I felt like there were moments, and I can't remember what round or what points of the fight, but I just kind of felt there were moments where he could have put his foot on the gas a little bit more, and he could have been more offensive, and he could have tried to hurt TJ Dillashaw, and he could have actually tried to win the fight rather than win the contest, if that makes sense. And Peter Yan is the total opposite of that, because for him, a fight is a fight. Like, it's always a fight for him. and like he has that edge that I'm referring to when I look at Corey Sandhagen, and I'm questioning whether he has that. Do you know what I mean? And in terms of in terms of how they match up against each other, one, I'm just going to say I feel like it's going to be very, very, very entertaining. I don't feel like Peter Yan's ever fought anyone that is as proficient on the feet as Corey Sandhagen. How it plays out, I don't know, because I don't know the technicalities of stand-up as well as others. I'm looking forward to listening to Jack Slack's breakdown of this. I haven't bothered listening to it because I knew I was going to record this yet, so I don't even know if he's released it yet. But I'm so excited about this fight. I'm waiting to listen to breakdowns and stuff myself. I'm just giving my opinion on the fighters, I suppose. In terms of who I'm picking, I feel like Peter Yan gets it done. I feel like Peter Yan's got the grit, and I feel like he has and I'm not saying Corey Sandhagen's mentally weak or anything. I don't know. I just feel like he and it might be to do with the way he talks and stuff. And, you know, he talks very philosophically and stuff like that in interviews and that. And I just feel like he doesn't have that edge where he goes into this thinking that this is a fight. I'm here to hurt my opponent. It's more of, all right, this is a contest, and these are the movements I need to do to make my opponent make mistakes so I can take advantage and score the points that I need to score to win the fight and hopefully get the knockout. I don't know. I'm probably wrong. But it's just my impression. Islam Makhachev against Dan Hooker. Now, obviously, I don't need to explain to you guys how this fight has come about. Dan Hooker is just doing Dan Hooker things, right? You got to rate him for stepping up and taking the challenge, taking a fight that not a lot of people want to take. Islam Makhachev is a guy that, you know, there's a lot of chatter about Islam Makhachev on social media, and it's clear to see that this is going to be the highest kind of ranked or the biggest. You'd have to say the biggest test in Islam Makhachev's UFC career in terms of how his opponents are viewed, in terms of how good they are, right? And Dan Hooker's taken the test to see whether Islam Makhachev can take Dan Hooker down and whether Dan Hooker can hurt Islam Makhachev while they're standing. It's a 3-round fight. Now, Islam Makhachev, I've been very impressed with his performances, but I think I've said this previously. I'm still yet to be all in on Islam and say, yeah, you know what, this guy is definitely going to be a future champion, because he just doesn't, like, I don't know, I just don't find it entertaining, if I'm honest. Like, I don't find his style very entertaining. Like, I can appreciate how good he is. I can appreciate the technicality of what he's doing, and I can appreciate how dominant he is and how he's able to take, once he's taken someone down, how he just dominates and stifles his opponents. But there's nothing in the way he fights that puts me on the edge of my seat. It's all very methodical. And again, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. I'm just giving my opinion in what I find interesting or entertaining in a fighting style. Because online I've seen a lot of chatter about people talking about, oh yeah, if you find Islam Makhachev boring, you don't know what you're watching, or you don't know about MMA and stuff. And I'd like to think I know a thing or two about MMA. It's just, I have the right to say that I don't find his style entertaining. Same way, I didn't really find Floyd Mayweather fights entertaining. Even though I understood what he was doing, and the fact that he was able to do what he was doing showed just how great he was. Doesn't mean I have to force myself to pretend that I find it exciting. You know? Maybe entertaining is a wrong word. I just don't find his style exciting. And Dan Hooker is a guy who has an exciting style. I just don't think he has the keys, the ability to beat Islam Makhachev. I just feel like Islam Makhachev. I feel like Dan Hooker's height and his height will be an issue for him, enabling Islam Makhachev to drop down and take him down. And I feel like Dan Hooker is very reckless is a strong word, because obviously he knows what he's doing, but he's not like a Corey Sandhagan, for example, who is very reliant on technique. Like, Dan Hooker will take a risk to land, and I feel like that will be to his detriment in a fight with someone like Makhachev, and Makhachev will be able to take him down. Final fight that I want to talk about on the main card. I know there's two others, but this is one that's really kind of I'm looking forward to, and it's Khamzat Chimaev against Jingliang. Who remembers Life with Eddie Murphy and what's his name? Lawrence? Well, how can I forget his name? Martin Lawrence. Life. And then Bernie Mac's character, his name was Jingliang. And he's just holding his thingies like that. My name's Jingliang. And that's all I can think. That's all I can think about whenever I read that guy's name, Jingliang. But anyway, again, this is I'd say it's a perfect fight for Khamzat to come back to. Obviously, he's had his troubles with COVID. He's been out for a while. I think it's been probably been over a year now since he last fought, and he was a guy that was hyperactive. So yeah, September 2020. He had since his debut in the UFC in July, he had 3 fights. So July, and then September. And I remember that fight in September, they're trying to find him another fight, but it didn't materialize. So I haven't really seen much of Jingliang. I did watch him beat up Ponzinibbio recently, and he was the underdog going into that fight, but he put it on him. He's a guy that is a robust challenge. He's a guy that is definitely a UFC caliber fighter, but he's also a guy that I'd put him in the same category as I put Jan Błachowicz and Glover Teixeira 4 or 5 years ago, where I'd never have thought that they'd become champions. And that's where I put Jingliang at the moment. I don't think he'll become the champion, right? I don't think he's good enough for it. So, given the fact that he's coming back from his troubles in terms of health issues, Khamzat, and the hype train that he was on last year. As I said, this is a robust challenge for him, but I just feel like, and to be honest, I don't even know what Jingliang's strengths are, because I feel like he's a stand-up fighter, but I don't know whether he has any credentials as a grappler or anything like that. And I'm not saying that well, even if he does have credentials as a grappler, that they're going to amount to anything in the face of competition from Khamzat. But I feel like Khamzat wins this fight, whether it's on the feet or on the ground, and look for a finish in this fight, because that's one thing I haven't been saying. So I feel like Jan Błachowicz will finish Glover Teixeira. I feel like Peter Yan will beat Corey Sandhagan on points. I feel like Islam Makhachev will beat Dan Hooker on points. And I feel like Khamzat will finish Jingliang. I feel like it will be a submission victory, or maybe ground and pound, but it'll be on the ground. And that's how I see that going. Aside from that, man, you've got Volkan Ozdemir's back. Volkan No Time Ozdemir, I believe, was his nickname. He was a guy that was on the cusp of a title shot, who's kind of lost his way a little bit over the last kind of couple of years. After he actually did have a title shot against Daniel Cormier, didn't he? But at the time, it didn't feel like it was a real title shot, because John Jones was in the picture, just wasn't the champion at that point, because he probably popped for drugs or whatever. He's fighting Ankalaev, who's looked very good, is the right way of saying it. So he was a guy, I remember when he had that fight with Kutalaba, who was playing, he was just playing past him, guys. He was playing past him, and then they had to have a rematch, and then he just annihilated him in the first round, and it made me think, was he actually really playing possum, or was he actually hurt? But yeah, he's a very, very clean, proficient fighter. This fight has been booked for Ankalaev to beat Ozdemir, but we'll see if he can. We'll see if he can. It's going to be an interesting card, man. Shout out to, I believe Lerone Murphy's on this one, yes, because he's fighting Makwan Amekhani. Amekhani is another guy that was touted as a potential future world champion, and he's gone off the tracks a little bit in terms of his recent form. He's a guy that looks like he's got all of the pieces, but he just can't seem to put them together. And Lerone Murphy this is by far Lerone Murphy's biggest test in his young mixed martial arts career. So it'll be interesting to see how he does against someone like Makwan Amekhani. This card is at a beautifully amazing time over here in the UK. I think it starts at like 8 o'clock. It's like prime time action, and I feel like I'm going to miss a lot of it because I'm going to be at a mate's birthday bash. And that's one thing in my whole life of watching the UFC numbered pay-per-view type events I've never had to like worry about, and now I've committed to going to a friend's birthday, and I can't watch it live, but hopefully I will be home in time for at least the Peter Yan and then the Błachowicz fights. But anyway, that's enough of me talking about my personal life nobody really cares about. Let me know what you guys think. Put your comments below. Don't be scared to hit the like button. Share this video with a friend if you've enjoyed it. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I'll catch you guys on the next one.